We're checking in on the Buffalo Bills pre-draft visitors and breaking down any prospects that we have yet to cover today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Moreno, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. Well, folks, welcome in. The NFL Draft is fast approaching, which means the Buffalo Bills are hosting prospects for 30 visits at the facility. And a 30 visit just means that you can invite 30 prospects to your facility to come in and spend some time with the staff and be in the facility. And so the list of players that the Bills are hosting is starting to become populated. And there's reports coming in of different guys that are visiting the team. And so what I want to do today is acknowledge the players that have been in for 30 visits, and we've covered a lot of them. And then for any that we haven't covered, I want to break them down for you. And there's actually going to be 7 different players that we're going to break down today. I also want to be mindful of any of the players that the Bills have had a private workout with. And so we're going to cover a couple of those today as well. Now, the challenge with this type of stuff, 30 visits, private workouts, is you get a lot of it reported, but a lot of it you don't. So it's not fully comprehensive, but we do get a good amount of it, and it does give us some indication as to which prospects and which types of prospects the Bills are interested in. So let's acknowledge the list of players that we've already covered, and I'll tell you who we haven't covered, and then we're going to cover them here today on Locked On Bills. So these players have been reported as 30 visits, right? It's a 30 visit for the Bills. Utah State wide receiver Jalen Royals. Again, we've covered all these players already. Tennessee defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott. Virginia Tech corner Dorian Strong. Georgia wide receiver Arian Smith. LSU edge rusher Braden Swinson. Ohio State defensive tackle Tyleek Williams. Ole Miss corner Trey Amos. ECU East Carolina corner Savone Revel. UCLA edge rusher Femi Oladejo. And Texas wide receiver Isaiah Bond. Private workouts that we've already covered: Maryland wide receiver Ty Felton. Texas defensive end Barron Sorrell. So if you want analysis on those players, I've already done scouting blurbs on all of them on the podcast. Today, we're going to cover players I have yet to cover. And there's several different positions that we're going to cover prospects at. So these are the guys. Chris Pooh Paul. He goes Chris Paul, but he goes by Pooh Paul. Linebacker, Ole Miss. He's been in for a private workout. Andrew Mukuba, safety out of Texas. He's a private workout. Ty Robinson, defensive tackle, Nebraska. He's a 30 visit. Thomas Fedone, tight end, Nebraska, private workout. Nash Hutmacher, defensive tackle, Nebraska. He's a private workout. Isaac Tesla, wide receiver, Arkansas. He's a 30 visit. And Keandre Lambert-Smith, wide receiver, Auburn. He's also a 30 visit. So I went through, scouted those players. We're going to break them down right now. All right, first up, linebacker Chris Pooh Paul, Ole Miss. 6'1", 222 pounds, 30.5-inch arms, 9 3/8 on the hand size. His relative athleticism score is a 6.14, but it's not really due to the athleticism. It's more he's undersized, right? 6'1", 222 at linebacker. That's what's bringing down the relative athleticism score. It's not that he doesn't have good athleticism. He's a very good athlete. He's just a little small. Production-wise, 22 career starts in 2024. At Ole Miss, 88 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 24 pressures, 3.5 sacks, an interception, 4 pass breakups, and a missed tackle rate of only 4.5%. 22 years old. He's going to turn 23 in November. His father was in the Navy, played football in high school, was a running back and a linebacker, also played baseball and competed in track. His first 3 seasons in college were at Arkansas and then this past season at Ole Miss. So you know what we do? We ask ourselves two questions. Why should the Bills consider drafting this player? What concerns are there about forecasting this player to the Bills? So why should the Bills consider drafting Pooh? Well, he really fits the matchup linebacker mold that the Bills have gravitated towards. You know, they've come out and said openly that they no longer want to have a traditional Mike linebacker and a traditional weak side linebacker. They want two weak side linebackers, two matchup players, which is exactly what they have in Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. And of course, Matt Milano is now an expiring contract, and we'll see what happens after the season. But Pooh certainly fits the mold that the Bills have told us they want at linebacker. He's urgent. He plays fast and physical. He's fun to watch on tape. He flies all over the field. Outstanding tackler that rarely comes up empty. Like we already mentioned, a 4.5% missed tackle rate. That's really good. He doesn't miss. He's a good tackler, which is pretty cool because his arm length is not very good at 30.5 inches. Got terrific range, a true sideline to sideline player. You know, you're not worried about him not being able to get to certain landmarks and cover distance. He's got good closing speed. I think he's a good coverage player, and that's not normal to say about college linebackers. A lot of time they have a lot of work to do. I think he's pretty comfortable in coverage, whether that's man coverage reps against running backs or even some of his zone drops where he can get some depth, feel routes behind him, read the backfield, and cap routes and be disruptive at the catch point. And you've seen quite a bit of that. I think he's got surprising contact balance for 222 pounds. This is a smaller linebacker, and he's not a very good take-on player. We'll get to that. But he does a good job of slipping blocks, and when he does take on a block, he is willing to attack that blocker with reckless abandon. He is going to do everything he can to not get rooted out and still be able to plug downhill. And he's a very good blitzer. Like I mentioned, 24 pressures, 3.5 sacks. He's very good at timing his blitzes. He's got good closing speed, and he's got some different moves that he uses to actually beat blocks. He's just not a guy that wants to just try to, convert speed to power or run around guys. He's got some pass rush moves as well when he does blitz. So there's a lot to like about Pooh. What concerns are there about forecasting Pooh to the Bills? Well, you wish he had more mass. He's 222 pounds, and linebackers are getting smaller, but I mean, we're on the fringes here for sure. I will say he's extremely physical. He's extremely competitive, but at the end of the day, your take on ability, taking on blocks in the NFL is going to be an uphill battle. He's going to have to work overtime to be able to take on these blocks at the next level. And so that's going to be a concern. You also wish he had more length. And so, sub 31 inch arms, not ideal. And that's going to just reduce his margin for error, right? Like tackle radius, not as big. Ability to over pursue and correct, not as good. And ability to invade the catch point, not as good, right? He's just missing some length. And I think those are things that are going to be restrictive problems at the next level that he's going to have to play around. So that's an unfortunate part of it, because otherwise the profile is really good. He's just a little bit light, doesn't have as much length, and that creates limitations on the field. So I think of him as a 4th-round value. I think he's got clear special teams upside. I think he has developmental starter appeal, but you do have to be mindful of some of the limitations that do exist with the player. All right, let's talk about this next guy, safety Andrew Mukuba out of Texas. 5'11", 194 pounds, 30-inch arms, 9-inch hands. We don't have a full RAS score, but he did run a 4.45 40-yard dash. 43 career starts in 2024, 41 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 5 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. 22 years old. He's going to turn 23 in December. He was born and raised in Zimbabwe, moved to Texas when he was 8 years old. In high school, played football, competed in track, did the long jump, the triple jump, and the 100 and 200 meters. First 3 seasons at Clemson, then he went to Texas for the 2024 campaign. So why should the Bills consider drafting Texas safety Andrew Mukuba? Well, he's a heat-seeking missile. I love watching this guy play from depth, and his downhill trigger is awesome. Outstanding at running the alley, coming downhill from depth, and making plays. He's very good at that. I think he's a good high post player in general. So whether that's split zones or middle of the field close coverages where he's the one high safety, he's got that type of profile. And that's kind of kind of the hardest thing to find as a safety. You can get guys that can play low and in the box, but who has the true ability to play over the top as the one high player? He certainly has that upside. And the ball hawking skills really showed up in 2024. He's got a great feel for driving on the football and being disruptive at the catch point. So there's a lot to like here as a high post player. Now, what concerns are there about forecasting Texas safety Andrew Mukuba to the Bills? Well, he's a little light. He's 186 pounds at the combine. Then at his pro day, he's 194. You could tell that maybe there was some feedback that he should add some weight, and he's already added, that's a pretty good amount of mass to get to about 195 pounds. But what's the playing weight? What's he comfortable at, right? That's something you got to kind of figure out. And I'll say this, he's a very good high post player, deep zones, one high safety, all of that's really good. I think he's kind of limited elsewhere. I don't think he's a guy that you want to play in the slot. I don't love him in man coverage. I don't think he's a guy that you want to play as a low safety. He's a guy that's most comfortable playing from depth. High post player, split zone, deep zone type player. That's a good thing to be, but you have to be mindful that this isn't a player that I look at and say, that's an interchangeable guy that can line up, in multiple spots. I think you want to keep him on the roof of the defense. He's great from the roof of the defense, but I don't think he's going to help you in a couple, some of those other areas that you would ideally want a safety to help you. So I think he's a good player. I think he's an NFL starter, but probably more of a specific type of starter because, you're going to want to complement what he gives with a low safety. And I think with Cole Bishop, that'd actually be a very good pair. Think about a more rangy Taylor Rapp. I think that's kind of what he can be. But, you're not going to get much appeal for him playing down low or in the slot. So good player. I have a late second round, early third round grade on Andrew Mukuba, and kind of curious not only to see where he ultimately goes, but what is the Bills' real interest in the safety market? Are the Bills a team that feels like they got to upgrade and that they're not good enough? I'm not sure I agree with that. I think the Bills look at their safeties and are pretty satisfied, but they're certainly doing some work on some guys, and Andrew Mukuba being one of them. All right, folks, if you are a fan of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, you're going to be excited about the next segment because we're breaking down 3 players that the Bills have either had a private workout with or hosted for a 30 visit. We'll break those down for you here on the other side of it. Please be sure to stick with me. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcases the strength and power needed to push the Buffalo Bills forward as we look ahead to next season. This week's Armada and clear-cut Player of the Week is Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. Just like the Armada is built for a heavy-duty workload, Trey Amos is NFL ready to be the starter in Buffalo, opposite of Christian Benford. Versatile in coverage. He can play press coverage, off coverage, zone coverage, has really good ball skills to take away the ball, and is an ascending talent that improves steadily throughout his college career. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say, go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what I think Trey Amos can do here. It's clear that our Player of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. All right, folks, welcome back. It's now time for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of today's podcast. We're going to break down Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, and Thomas Fedone. Some interesting players here. We'll start with Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, defensive tackle, 6'5", 291 pounds, 32.25-inch arms, 10-inch hands, relative athleticism score of a 9.89. That's real good. 10's as high as you can go. Production-wise, 47 starts in 2024, had his best season. He was a 6-year player at Nebraska and really ascended that last year. 37 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks in 2024. He's 23 years old, going to turn 24 in May. Played football and baseball in high school as a pitcher, actually. 6 seasons in college, and it's not because of like a bunch of injuries. He redshirted in 2019. Then there was the COVID year, and then 4 more seasons. So he took advantage of all the eligibility he could get. And he's 23. He's going to turn 24 in May. So he's not like super old, but he's on the older side of it. So why should the Bills consider drafting Ty Robinson, D-tackle, Nebraska? Well, this dude is a war daddy. I mean, you watch this guy play. He's a ton of fun. He's easy to love. He looks like a refrigerator out there. Like you have a refrigerator, you put a helmet on top of it. That's Ty Robinson on a football field. You won't find a guy with a motor that runs more hot than Ty Robinson. This dude brings it. Unreal play urgency. Plays with low pads. Powerful guy at the point of attack. Violent player. Violent hands. Sudden hands. He's going to bring the fight on every single snap. And his hands are sudden. They're powerful. He's got that rock back power to take control of reps and really impose himself. I think he's got elite football character. He reminds me a lot of Zach Allen, but probably a more powerful player overall. So a guy that profiles as a penetration style player that you want to play in some wider alignments, probably a 4-eye, 3-tech, maybe as a 2. Not necessarily a clean fit to playing in the nose or playing as a true edge, but kind of in that 2 to 4-eye range. I think he can make an impact for a penetration style front as a run defender and as a pass rusher. You're not going to like drive this guy off the ball. And he's got a play temperament that is going to allow him to beat blocks, and he can really power through the edges and win as a pass rusher as well. So what concerns are there about forecasting Ty Robinson to the Bills? Well, he's pretty tightly wound. I don't think he has a ton of flexibility at any point of his frame, like upper body, hips, ankles. He's pretty tight, much more of a linear athlete. He's explosive, but it's straight line explosive. I wish he had some more length. I think that would really take him to like the next level of prospect and, just the upside in the NFL. Sub 33-inch arms, 32.25-inch arms. You wish he had like 34, 35-inch arms to really profile as this like DeForest Buckner type player, but he's kind of missing some of that. So that's not who he is. Change of direction, lateral quickness, that's kind of less than ideal. It speaks to the overall tightly wound profile that I've described. And he's also a guy that I think can play with a little bit better control. I mean, this guy plays with his hair on fire. I mean, the urgent player. But that obviously comes sometimes with some issues where you can maybe overrun a pursuit angle, or you can get too far up the field, or you can take yourself out of your run fit. So some of that you have to live with, but there's a lot of good that comes with Ty Robinson. I give him a late 3rd round, early 4th round grade. And, I think any defensive line would love to have a player like this. The next guy, another Husker, defensive tackle Nash Hutmacher, 6'3", 312, 31 3/4 on the arm length. That's not great. 9.5-inch hands, RAS score of a 7.4, 27 career starts in 2024, 24 tackles, 4 for loss, and 2 sacks. 23 years old. He's going to turn 24 in May. In high school, football player, wrestler, and competed in track. He threw the shot put. But, of course, the wrestling background is what I think the Bills are really interested here. He's a 4-time state champion in high school, had a record of 166-0, and he started to practice with the varsity guys when he was in 6th grade. So, Sean McDermott, wrestlers, this is probably a big appeal for the Bills. Now, I'm not going to describe a very exciting player, so I don't want to spend too much time here. So why should the Bills consider drafting Nash Hutmacher out of Nebraska? Well, he profiles as a nose tackle, which is, I think, where the Bills need some help. Gritty player, high effort player, plays with good leverage. He's got that wrestling background. I think he's got good football character. There's a lot to like in that capacity, but there are some real concerns here when it comes to Nash Hutmacher. I just think he's a marginal talent. There's no length. He's got really poor contact balance. He's on the ground way too much. There's not a real pass rush profile here. I think he's probably a fringe draftable player. And I normally wouldn't talk about a player like this, but the Bills did have a private workout. And so I want to shed light on the players that the Bills are expressing interest in. This is probably maybe a UDFA, maybe like a late, day 3 type pick. I'm sure there's some appealing qualities of him as a person. The football piece is just not really NFL caliber. All right, let's get to tight end Thomas Fedone out of Nebraska. 6'5", 243, 34-inch arms, 10 5/8 on the hands. That's a lot of length. That's some big mitts he's got. Relative athleticism score of a 9.49. 17 career starts in 2024, 36 catches, 373 yards, 4 touchdowns. 22 years old. He turns 23 in September. In high school, football, basketball, track. In track, he did the jumps and the hurdles. He does have some injuries here. In 2021 and 2022, he tore his ACL back-to-back years. Now, the good news is he's played every game in 2023 and in 2024. So 2 completely healthy seasons after back-to-back ACL tears. So why should the Bills consider drafting Thomas Fidone out of Nebraska? This dude is a highly, highly skilled receiving talent. Route running profile is terrific. Hands, ball skills, body control, outstanding. Massive wingspan. There's a lot to like about route running and what he can do at the catch point. I mean, very, very skilled. Big time recruit coming out. In fact, he was a higher ranked recruit out of high school than Brock Bowers. The problem is he had 2 ACL tears, which certainly takes away a little something, but he's plenty. You watch him play, he's got a lot of athleticism and a lot of receiving skill. Super physical player, aggressive blocker that gets after people. He's 243, so let's not get it twisted. He's not going to be a guy that's going to create a ton of displacement, but the willingness, the temperament is something that's easy to love. So what concerns are there about forecasting Thomas Fidone, tight end Nebraska, to the Bills? Well, durability, right? I mean, back-to-back ACL tears, that's not great. He's not going to be a people mover. So the inline blocking profile, I think he's probably okay, but it's not going to be a plus quality of what he offers. Yards after catch profile is modest. I was hoping to see more there. You see this guy that has a lot of athleticism, a lot of route running ability. Usually there's a yards after catch profile that's pretty exciting with that, and you don't really have it. And I would say overall the athleticism is more linear than it is, lateral and those types of things that really make you good after the catch. So that would be a reason why he's not that dynamic with the ball in his hands. I see a 4th round value here. There's concerns. The upside is very significant, I would say, because that receiving profile is so attractive. So the Bills need a tight end 3. Maybe this guy can give them a little something. Would be a very interesting addition. All right, coming up on the other side of it, I got 2 speedy receivers to talk about for you. Folks, be sure to stick with me. Buffalo businesses, it's time to register for the JP Morgan Corporate Challenge. This year's event is on Thursday, June 12th, and features a 3.5-mile course through Delaware Park, followed by a celebration with a DJ, lawn games, and a tented experience for you and your teammates. Walkers, joggers, and runners are all welcome. Whether you run for the love of it, for your company, or to build lasting bonds, this is your moment. Teams of 4 participants or more can register today. Registration closes on Tuesday, May 13th. 1 part run, 1 part party. The Corporate Challenge has earned its reputation as Buffalo's corporate social event of the year. Join us for great competition, teamwork, company pride, and a true sense of accomplishment. Go to www.jpmorganchasecc.com and choose Buffalo as your location to start registration today. See you on the course. All right, 2 more players to get to. These are both speed receivers, something the Bills have been looking at quite a bit of when you look at their players that they've met with and had in for 30 visits or had workouts with. They're definitely interested in some speed at receiver. And that's exactly what these next 2 guys are. We'll get to wide receiver Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas. 6'3" and 5/8, 214 pounds, 32.25-inch arms, 10-inch hands. Relative athleticism score of a 9.93. He's got a lot of athleticism. In 2024, had 28 catches for 546 yards and 3 touchdowns. 23 years old, turns 24 next February, so he just turned 23. Comes from a family of athletes. His dad played college football and was the team MVP at Hillsdale College. His sister plays volleyball at a D2 school. In high school, he played football, basketball, and baseball. And when he played football, this is important, he was a quarterback for a wing T offense. So he didn't start playing receiver until he gets to college. And he spends his first 3 seasons at Hillsdale College. Year 3, he had crazy production. And then he spent his last 2 years at Arkansas. So why should the Bills consider drafting Isaac Tesla, wide receiver out of Arkansas? Height, weight, speed, right? Almost 6'4", 214 pounds, and explosive, very dynamic speed down the field. And he complements that excellent vertical speed with really good ball tracking skills and body control and hands down the field. He's got it. And he doesn't drop the ball. He has no drops in 100 targets at Arkansas in 2 seasons. He's an elite competitor, blocks his tail off, it matters. That matters a ton. You love that about Mac Hollins. This guy's got that type of same urgency as a blocker, physical with the ball in his hands, and he's a very experienced player on special teams when it comes to kick coverage and returns, right? So he's going to be a gunner. He's going to be a jammer. He'll be an asset covering kickoffs and blocking on kickoffs. So there's a very clear way that he can help a football team. Now, what concerns are there about Isaac TeSlaa, wide receiver, Arkansas? Well, very good vertical receiver, right? Linear playing, get down the field, use your speed, use your physicality, get loose down the field. He really lacks the overall route tree. So you love the vertical stuff, over routes, go routes, posts. That's good. There's not a whole lot else. So you want him to work the short and intermediate areas. He doesn't have the route running chops quite yet. So there's going to be a big curve there and a limitation to be mindful of. Beating press coverage, heavy slot usage at Arkansas, and that's for a reason. In fact, the slot usage jumped in year 2. This guy get hung up on contact, right? So he needs those free releases to be able to get into that route and down the field. So there's a lot of technical refinement needed as a route runner. So I certainly said a lot of really good things, but you got to be mindful of some of the issues here. I think just ultimately right now, and maybe he can develop, right now he's a specialized player. And that's good because I think you need players like this that are going to come in, give you that vertical component, can block, and play special teams. Like Mac Hollins he's 32 years old, Mac Hollins. He's had this career that he's had because he's been very good at those things. And, the Bills need this type of player. And when you talk about your wide receiver 5, this is what you're looking for, is somebody that can do these things, but then also gives you some upside to maybe develop and do more, because everything else he does is really exciting. Remember, wing T quarterback in high school, playing receiver at Hillsdale College. He's behind, but there's upside. If this was the Bills' 5th round pick, I'd be super excited. But you have to understand what he's not and the curve here. But a lot of very attractive qualities with Isaac TeSlaa. All right, one more player, wide receiver Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn. 6'1", 190 pounds, 32 5/8 on the arm length, 9 1/8 inch hands. Relative athleticism score of a 903. Ran 4.37 in the 40-yard dash. 49 career starts. In 2024, 50 catches for 981 yards and 8 touchdowns. That led Auburn. And then it's funny, in 2023, he led Penn State in receiving. So back-to-back years, he led different Power 5 blue blood programs, right, in receiving. Auburn in 2024, Penn State in 2023. He's 23 years old, turns 24 in October. His uncle is Cam Chancellor. That's a legendary safety from the Legion of Boom, right, the Seattle Seahawks. Really good player. Played football and competed in track in high school. First 4 seasons of his career at Penn State, last season at Auburn. Why should the Bills consider drafting Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn? Speed. This guy is a very good vertical receiver. This past season, 9 catches on targets 20 yards or more down the field, 18 targets, 9 catches for 381 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's got some really cool stats. I don't have them right here, but 80-yard touchdowns at Penn State. He's got the most 50-yard touchdowns at Auburn. Some very impressive, deep stuff down the field, big time receiving moments, big plays. He gives that stuff. And the route running down the field is really good. Go balls, overs, posts, double moves. He's very good at winning vertically down the field, which then, of course, when you're very dynamic down the field, it opens up a lot of the underneath stuff, right? When teams are concerned about your ability to run by them, they're going to play with vertical leverage, and then you can just work back down stem, and it creates a world of opportunities on back shoulders, digs, deep outs, deep ins. It's all there because they have to respect that vertical component. When you got a quarterback like Josh Allen that has the arm talent to really drive those throws, it's a good combination. And I think he's got good ball skills and body control and tracking ability down the field. So what concerns are there about forecasting Keandre Lambert-Smith to the Bills? It's all about functional strength. It's not good enough. And it creates a lot of problems for him, whether that's beating press coverage, winning leverage at the catch point, right? You got to be able to put your body in position to win the ball. Well, you're not very strong, and that becomes an issue. Blocking, not a thing. There's no special teams profile. So you have a specialized player that is just missing a lot of things. He's just limited in the way he can help a team. It's very much like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I talked about this with him last year. I'm like, guys, he only can do one thing. And there's not enough to the skill set here that's going to keep him on the roster. So he's got Keandre Lambert-Smith has a lot to prove. Now, he does do something that's very valuable, and that's win with speed down the field, and he's got a great profile there. He's got to round out his game a little bit more to make him more attractive and valuable to stick on a roster. I would also say he's not completely immune to drops. So some issues here, but certainly some appeal. I have him as a mid-day 3 guy, 5th, 6th round type option. All right, folks, hope you enjoyed that. You know, we kind of got through the positions that were most important for me in defensive tackle, corner, edge, speed at receiver, home run hitting running backs. And now I want to just spend time filling in the blanks. And I think the best way to fill in the blanks is to focus on players that the Bills have expressed some interest in. There's a lot of players that are going to get drafted. I'm not going to cover every single one of them. You know, it's almost 250 something players. So how do we have the right conversations with the time left before the draft? I think this is a good way to do it. And of course, you know, we're this week or 2 weeks from now, we're going to know who the Bills picked in the first round, and we'll be talking about day 2. So this is coming pretty quick, and obviously some more conversations I'm excited to have before the draft to make sure that we're fully ready here on Locked On Bills. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you are subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.